Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I'm a soccer nerd. I am Donald, joined by two other soccer nerds. First off, Deepti, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing okay, Donald. I have a bit of post-World Cup depression still. And then now that it's summer break for F1, I have a bit of lack of F1 depression too. So it's good. We need to get more stuff on TV. At least there's WAFCON.
There's WAFCON. There's definitely WAFCON. Unfortunately, it's on BN Sports. We don't have enough podcasts to talk about BN Sports, but we have Andre. Andre is better than BN Sports. He's much better. How you doing, sir?
It's a low bar, but I'm glad I could clear it.
You cleared it beautifully.
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way as DP. It actually feels wrong that we've already had a break this season that will be longer than the summer break. But all right, sure.
Yeah, and of course, the break has started with a bunch of news. Just so everyone out there is aware, we're going to recap the Hungarian Grand Prix first, and then after the break, we will get into all the news that everyone's talking about, including the fact that Bahrain Grand Prix is moving to Malaysia, at least for this year. But first, again, the Hungarian Grand Prix went down. It's been a few days since then, so we're going to go through it very quickly. First of all, the results. Lando was on pole. He goes not wire to wire, but he ends up winning the race. Max finishes second and Kimi in third. Both Ferraris, Charles and Lewis, were fourth and fifth, and Isaac Hajar was sixth a week ago. He is sixth again in Hungary. And your DNFs are George and both Cadillacs, Sergio and Valtteri. I want to start off first, Andre, with this. Somehow this podcast needs to figure out during the summer break how we're going to declare war on the FIA on behalf of Lewis Hamilton, because for what feels like the 97th week in a row, he has been penalized yet again, this time for, quote, speeding in the pit lane, and it was allegedly by 0.1 kilometers per hour. If you want to do that math at home, that is not even a foot an hour. So, have that what you will. My man took a step, and that step was probably faster than what he apparently exceeded the speed limit by. So, Andre, your thoughts first on Lewis just getting the shaft all the time. So, it seems, from the FIA.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me too, because I feel like under normal circumstances, the rules are the rules. They do build in like a tiny bit of grace, but not enough for 0.1 to be on the other end of that, right? So I do think that, and as we know, drivers are going to push to the very maximum, so it doesn't really matter. Like, I feel like for safety, that pit lane speed limit is there for a reason. You do not want a lot of mechanics that are out there. Remember when one was released a couple races ago, released early, Lewis took off early and almost hurt a mechanic. Luckily, he was okay, but it's dangerous down there. So I get it. I understand that. My problem is, I don't know how much I trust the FIA when it comes to measuring these things, because remember that issue we had in Monaco, and suddenly they were like, we ain't wrong. And Pierre Gasly was like, nah, y'all are wrong. And he was like, all right, well.
And brought the video proof.
Yeah, he brought the evidence, or Alpine brought the evidence on his behalf, and he got his podium back, and they had to apologize. But then everybody else was like, hey, what about us? And they're like, nah, y'all chill. It ain't we
get your
ain't
appeal
gonna,
in time.
Yeah, we ain't gonna say we ain't gonna admit that many mistakes. Like, take it easy. And it was like, well, it was wrong. It feels like everybody was punished unfairly. So I don't have a lot of faith in that. But this was also a situation where Lewis seemed to be the only one to pick up that penalty. It's just a bad stretch for him. The wheel to wheel penalty that he got was wrong in the previous race. I think I know that, like, people have been over that a lot, but that was just flat out wrong, especially given that Leclerc was let go for what he did to Piastri in at Spa. So, like, it is half on Lewis, half on the stewards of the day. But for this one, yeah, that's on Lewis. It's pretty cut and dry, and it's unfortunate that this keeps happening to him. And I mean, You even had the grid penalty too. Like all this stuff is just really, really difficult to watch happen to somebody who, like, aside from all that, he seems to be feeling fine. The car's feeling good. He almost only missed out on pole by like what 12 hundredths or whatever of a
100th of a second,
second.
yeah.
And so like he's doing great. It's just that these things keep popping up. Some his fault, some not.
And I think also, as a reminder, because we had to go through this after Monaco, it's not like a speed penalty, right? It's not like a speed calculation. It's not like, hey, he was going, 60.1, kilometers an hour or whatever it is through the pit lane. It is times, like what time did you hit one line and then the time that you hit the other
Yeah.
line, and they break that down, and that is your average speed. So literally it's like if he turns the wheel in a different direction by like a millimeter, he's under the limit. And I think that's just, again, I'm certain they may not do anything about it, but I'm certain that that is going to be reviewed in the off season because there's too many guys that have been penalized this year from it. It's used to be where getting speeding in the pit lane was like maybe once or twice every other season. Like it wasn't, it was a very rare occurrence. This year it has popped up enough. And I don't think it's because all these guys are, quote, cheating, right? Like it's something where it might become, especially with these new cars, an outdated rule, at least something that needs to be at least considered and reviewed after the season. Deepti, your thoughts?
Yeah, we talked about it when they had all those penalties before, but I don't understand why they do the distance over time measurement. You can easily track the speed of through the pit lane of every
Yeah.
car.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you, Donald. Hopefully, like in the off season, that is something that they look at and try to fix. But it might have to do with the new regulations. Like I don't know, especially with we can talk about this more later now, but with all the AI in the cars as well, telling them when to boost, when to stop, when to slow down, and all this stuff, like maybe they don't actually have as much control over their legitimate speed and like how long it takes to go from one place to one place. And that could be a reason why we're seeing so many of these penalties too. Because I mean, I don't know the feel of the car, but it seems like it's a bit like jerky or randomly getting boost or randomly not getting boost and whatever. Like the computer's telling the cars to do stuff that the drivers don't necessarily want it to do. So that could be a possible reason too. But you're right. It's like weird that we've seen so many of them, but unfortunately, it is one of those penalties that, if they say under review for speeding, it is a penalty. Like they never look at it and say, oh no, he wasn't speeding. Like it's only flagged if it is speeding.
I am so glad you brought up this AI thing because I have been so like the thing that's been frustrating me this entire season, and I know we'll get to like bigger picture chat, so maybe I'll put a pin in this, but just like there's been so much complaining from drivers, commentators, journalists, just people around F1 about these regulations and the yo-yo racing and all of that. All that stuff was only happening because of cars working out or the AI, the learning models working out deployment. That's what happened. That's why you got that. And it took them so long to identify the actual problems. They just wanted to talk about the regulations and act like it's all the regulations' fault. No, it was a lot of these teams, every single team is relying on some technology which is brand new to these regulations and brand new to how these regulations work around these tracks, and their learning models are just getting them wrong. Also, because drivers are humans, so they're not going to take the same lap, and they're also trying to find the fastest way around the lap. So they're not going to like throughout practice replicate things 100% so that you can give the computer the best possible like cleanest data. They're going to maybe take this turn a little differently or get on the throttle a little earlier, maybe a little later. Like they're going to do things differently to try to figure out what's most comfortable for them at that track in this car with these new regulations. And so to deploy AI the way that they have, and especially when you start seeing like the longer tracks and how you hear so much clipping that's going on, that to me, that's been the worst part. And it's not necessarily on the regulations, it's on the teams for using these shoddy learning models that they can't really program correctly. And that's just it's just a fact of where things are right now. And to me, that's the biggest issue that's going on. So yeah, I know I already went on the rant, but I might go on the rant again later on because it's really been pissing me off.
Look, I've been watching, Terminator 2 has been on a lot the last week or so, obviously with World Cup. I can watch it as many times as I want. And if it's Skynet that's messing this up, then I already know the blueprint on how to go to war with them. I'll just watch the whole Terminator series. Let's get it popping. Make it where we can save our man Lewis from AI messing up his chance at number 8. So yeah, I think again a lot of these things maybe not addressed during the break, but once the season's over and they kind of look back, maybe some of these little things might be tweaked or at least reviewed in the offseason for possible tweaking. Let's move on because I want to talk really quickly about the fact that McLaren, for the most part, had a really good weekend until Oscar's gearbox decided to go bye-bye in the 55th lap. He had started third. He was trending, 1, 2, 3. He was basically short of the couple of laps outside of a pit stop. He was trending to be on the podium and contending for the win alongside his teammate Lando. And the gearbox really did him in. On the other side, you have Cadillac, who, both guys had to retire their car, unfortunately. And I think in the case of Oscar, Deepti, your thoughts, because I know you're an Oscar fan, but it feels like he was doing everything right. And at least this time, it wasn't papaya rules that did him in. It was just his car breaking down at the worst possible time.
Yeah. I also want to tell the listeners that I watched this race a day late, but I had kept up with the chat. And Donald in the chat just said Oscar in like what seemed to be an excited way. So me looking at that, I was expecting a good result for Oscar and an Oscar podium.
My bad.
And then I saw what happened and I was just shattered. But
well, what's the opposite of a spoiler alert?
Yeah, it was like the
he didn't spoil it, but he kind of spoiled it.
Right? No, it was such a shame, and it was so sad because he hasn't had the greatest season, and just being able to get, I think it would have been his second podium of the year. He had one earlier. It's one of those like a reliability issue again with, is it like the Mercedes power unit? I don't actually know exactly what when the gearbox went wrong. It just shut down, but he could have, he was driving really well. He did like strategy wise, they maybe let him out in a little bit too much traffic towards the end. He would have to overtake a lot. Maybe the pushing and trying to overtake and being in a lot of like that dirty air is what caused the gearbox to fail, because that has happened to previous like McLaren and Mercedes units before. So that just could be an issue. And maybe if he was, ahead of that pack and that group of drivers that he was trying to get past, it might not have happened at that point. But it's such a shame. And it's like, again, you can't predict it, and I don't really know what you do after that. You just kind of have to shake it off and try to drive as well as he did again.
Yeah, it's like you said, I don't know if it's a Mercedes unit issue, because as you mentioned, both Mercedes and McLaren have had these issues throughout the year at different times. But it was, if you're watching the race and you see Oscar battling, and then all of a sudden you see two McLarens go through, and then like the next corner you just saw one, and you're like, oh, did somebody pass Oscar? And then you see Oscar just like trailing out into the wilderness. You're just like, oh, well, I guess he's done. And I'm sure they, that's a bitter pill for them to swallow, Oscar, especially as they enter this long break. Let's move on, because again, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to go through our accountability corner really quickly. First with the podiums. Of course, the actual podium was Lando, Max, and Kimi. Kyle had George, Max, and Kimi. So very, very close, except George was not there. Ebony had Kimi, Charles, and Lewis. Very, very close there. They had, that was 3, 4, 5. So if we were predicting 3, 4, 5, Ebony would have nailed it. I went on to Lulu Island. I had Lewis, Kimi, and Charles. So I only got one guy on the podium. And Deepti, you had Kimi, Charles, and Lewis. You just had my order a little bit differently. But again, you had Kimi on there as well. Destructor strap, our actual highest for the first time, I believe, in a while, was Red Bull. Because Isaac got got sixth or whatever. And he was just enough to outpace Ferrari. So the high was Red Bull, the low was Williams, Haas, and Alpine, in addition to, of course, Aston Martin and Cadillac. Kyle, he had the most as Mercedes and the least as Williams, so at least he got one of those right. Ebony had Ferrari and Williams. got the least right. I had Ferrari and Haas, and Deepti had Ferrari and Audi. So Deepti, you're the lone person who did not get one, and that was because Audi was too good, which I guess is a good thing
Hulk got
for
his
Audi.
first points of the season.
There we
So
go.
good for him.
Congratulations to the Hulkster. So let's move on quickly to our Zoomy Boy and Gloomy Boy. I will go back to you, Deepti. Your Zoomy Boy and Gloomy Boy.
Yeah, I had two for Zoomy. I just said Hulk got his first points. I'm gonna give Hulk a Zoomy boy. There was another race when he was set to like get pretty far up in, I think, in the top 10, and ended up having to retire. So this time he actually got points, and that was great. And then I want to give it to Arvid Lindblad as well, just because he's been consistently in the points, both the racing bulls really, but for being a rookie and a lot of these tracks are kind of new to him, it's great that he's been so consistent. And then Gloomy Boys, I gotta give it to Williams. Like, especially Alex Albon, he just sounds so sad every single time. And from qualifying on, he's just like, that was horrible. That was so bad. And he's just, I don't know. He's such a sweet person, and I feel really bad for him, but he's just not having a good time.
Yeah. It's especially for Albon. It just feels like anything he does is like he's spitting in mud
Yeah.
with his car. So yeah, definitely not probably a season to forget for him. Andre, your Zoomy and Gloomy Boys.
I'm gonna be pretty basic and split the Mercedes drivers. I think obviously one got on the podium, one did not. And the one who did not started ahead of his teammate because Kimmy did that. Y'all remember when George got that, what was it, pole at the Red Bull Ring? When
Hmm.
Max spun out
Hmm.
and George lifted just a little bit, just a little tiny smidge of a lift, but that was enough for him to claim pole. And I said, and Kimmy was like respected the yellow flags and completely like bailed out of his lap. And after that, we said, ain't no way Kimmy is breaking for another yellow flag at all. And in this race, the same thing happened, and he did not lift, and then he got a penalty. So he actually started behind his teammate. But George, from the start, they say it wasn't his fault, but he had some sort of anti-stall thing happen with his engine. He dropped all the way back. Kimmy fought his way through, and this is kind of the scary thing about Kimmy right now is if he has a bad weekend, he's finding a way to still end up on the podium. You can't catch somebody who consistently does that because like George needed to like they needed to swap places. George finished seventh, Kimmy finished third. George needed to be the one finishing on the podium, not Kimmy. Kimmy ended up fighting his way through. Obviously, they had some options with strategy because they were behind, and he gets that third spot on the podium. Yeah, this is looking like if he continues this when the season returns, we're looking at the youngest F1 drivers champion ever. And yeah, the days like this are what solidifies it for me, and not
Hmm.
necessarily the winning, but when things aren't going your way and you still end up on the podium, yeah, he's a problem.
Yeah. So my Zoomy Boy is Hulk. For getting points again, his first points of the season. I thought he did extremely well. The Audi wasn't like the best it's been on the circuit so far this year. So he kind of had to fight with it a little bit. Same with Bortoletto, who was a couple spaces behind him. But all in all, I think Hulk and Audi had a pretty good weekend for them. On the other side, for my Zoomy Boy, I'm going with Cadillac's social media for putting out the graphic of two DNFs and making it seem like like just not our weekend. Yeah, it very much wasn't. And Caddy's my team, so it pains me to put them as Zoomy. But that graphic, yep, we don't have. Andre, I think you said it. We don't have to do the graphic every week if it's not something that you want to broadcast to the world. You can just
Yeah,
say, "Not our day." We'll look forward to the break.
yeah. But what do? You do the Bill Belichick thing, just on to Cincinnati, right? You
Yeah,
don't need to be like, all right, race is finished, DNF both drivers, all right.
DNF and DNF.
Maybe
Yeah.
don't put that out there. We don't need
Just
that
just
image.
just do the one sentence statement or like thank you Hungary, like
Yeah,
something
right.
Right?
Yeah,
something to
there
let
you
you know
go.
that it wasn't a
Yeah.
good weekend, but we're appreciative of the effort.
I'm
So yeah.
I'm impressed with how many things have gone wrong with their car, but specifically how many times they've caught on fire. Like you'd think
Yes.
Yeah.
after one time or maybe two that they would figure this out, but it's like it's been a few weeks in a row that they're like, "Oh, brakes are on fire. This is on fire." got to retire, and it's insane.
The brake thing is funny because that's a problem they thought they solved. The last time the
Right.
brakes caught fire, then they were like, all right, we know what happened. Our bad. Sorry. Like this F1 thing is difficult. We figured it out. And then suddenly, like 2 races later, they catch on the brakes catch on fire again. They're like,
Right?
you what? We
What?
thought y'all fixed that problem.
I think I said this in the chat, but I would long to live in the world where Sergio's point wasn't taken away from him a few weeks back,
Hmm.
because
Yes.
I feel like we would be in a different timeline, where Caddy had solved all those issues, and because they got the boost from getting a point, they would go on to get more points. I'm not necessarily thinking they'd shoot up the grid, but you at least have them competing, to get points every single week, as opposed to what's going on now. I feel like that might have been the fork in the road of the timeline, at least for this season. Hopefully, they
Right.
can get it together in summer break and get out of here with a point. We're not asking for much, but a point would be something that we would ask for. So,
Yeah.
with that, go ahead, Deep.
Can
Last
I?
word.
Well, I just want to pose a question to you both because this came up a lot in this race specifically was drivers not paying attention to blue flags. And so my
Yeah.
question to you is that do you think blue flags should even be a thing or do you think that should be a part of racing that if you catch the back of the pack, you should just race them and have to race them in order to move past? Like do you think it's like having the cars that are still trying to fight for position because we saw that with it was I think Lawson, Lindblad, and Hulk who were trying to fight for like ninth and 10th, which are still obviously point spots, having to move aside and then ruining not really ruining, but kind of messing up their race and their battle in order to let the cars behind them go. I almost think that, if you're in front and you are lapping someone, like you should still have to fight the drivers that you are trying to lap.
I think the first thing is I'm going to put aside, for the sake of your question, I'm going to put aside the fact that the blue flags are likely there for a safety issue, right? Like, because the cars at the back of the grid are slower. And so I'm going to put that aside for a second. Deep I wholeheartedly 1000% agree with you. They should be, and I think it would be part of the strategy too, right? If George, or in this case, like Oscar, right? If he gets, stuck at the back of the pack or something, they don't retire the car because they're like, hey, Kimmy's coming back around in like 20 laps anyway, so we can stall him and maybe give a chance for Lando to catch
Mm.
up or gain some ground. It could be where teams can have part of that strategy of, hey, just because something happens, you're at the back of the grid, don't worry about it. We can still figure out a way to get some points for the other guy and turn it into a team race. But I do think it shouldn't be, again, safety considerations all aside. If it's just about the racing, yeah, you're supposed to fight for every place you take, and no one's supposed to just let you have it. So
Mhm.
that's my deal. Andre.
I disagree with both of y'all so hard. So hard. You're slow. You should not be impacting the leaders of the race. Get out of the way. They're not fighting for your position. You're on the other lap. Y'all ain't even on the same lap. You're on a different lap. You're not fighting for any positions. Get out of the way. And I think the other problem that I have, and this maybe, I'm gonna be honest, this might be my Lewis bias, but Lewis had to battle a Racing Bulls and Hajar in the Red Bull. That is a problem. I think there
Mm.
needs to be harsher penalties for cars, not for lap cars not getting out of the way, so that you don't have this teammate issue thing. Like if they're back markers and they need to get out of the way, that's one thing, right? That's one thing. But if it's like after a pit stop, which is this is what actually happened to Lewis. It was after a pit stop. It wasn't
Hmm.
really chasing a back marker, but we have also seen it happen that way as well. And so I think yes, if you're on the same lap, obviously doesn't matter. You're on the same lap, so fine. That's when you're actually racing for spots. It is important to pass the cars that you're faster than. But when it comes to lap cars, they ain't even in the same race. Different. You're fighting for very different things. So get to me, you have to get out of the way because I don't care. I don't want to see Oscar Piastri having to scrap with Carlos Sainz in a Williams when he's leading the race. He's leading the race. The Williams is getting lapped. I don't need to see that fight. That's not a fight that has any bearing on anything except for Carlos just being like, I can now like Like now it's my time to shine. You didn't earn it. You were just slow as hell and you refused to get out of the way. That's my problem. It's not is like the competition. They're two different. They're on two different levels. Stay in your lane. Stay on your level. That's what we're looking at. I want to see what happens at the front of the grid, like with the drivers who are in the lead. I want to see them battling. I could care less. I could care less about like I do care about your individual scraps, right? If you're scrapping for points or whatever, or you're scrapping for a higher finish, fine. But when a lead car comes, you got to get out of the way as quickly as possible because it makes absolutely no sense to try and hold them up. You're just in the way of something that like the actual spectacle, and you're there because you're slow. That's it.
Well, if they're
Andre
slow,
is full
then
ludicrous.
I was like, they should just be able to pass them easily then if they're slow.
No, but
In
you know
Mario Kart,
that's
when
not
if you lap someone in
you
Mario
can't
Kart,
say
the people
in
up front
Mario
ain't
Kart.
gonna like move out of the way.
But you know
Right.
that this is the thing, especially at a track like Hungary. Like you can position your car in ways where you are just in the way. Like Fernando Alonso is excellent at doing that. Like he is really difficult to pass.
I was gonna say he did that 2 races or what 5 races ago when he was
Yeah,
10 laps down when they
yeah,
were just kind of taking little side breaks while
yeah.
everyone else was racing. He came
And
back.
the margins are so thin, so tight. Like what was it a few races ago where like the top three or top five were all within the like 3 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds of each other, something like that. Like the margins are so thin, and if you can hold up somebody out of nowhere just because you're so slow that they have to pass you, they go an entire lap around and catch up to you, and you can just eat up or take away tenths or seconds of a lap from them, you're altering how the race is being played out from an advantage that you shouldn't have. You only have it because you're slow and you're in the way. So I don't want to see them completely like taking up lap time from these drivers who are in the faster cars and actually performing well. And sometimes it is very difficult to pass no matter what. Like we've all been on the road, we all been behind somebody who's driving very slowly and no lane opens up to pass them. And so you're just getting mad. I don't want to see that with F1. I want the fast drivers to be able to drive fast and I want them to be battling each other, not a damn back marker who just refuses to get out of the way. It's not why I'm watching.
Maybe there should be a rule then. Okay, if you're in the points, you don't have to. Because my problem was that it was, like I said, Lawson, Lindblad, and Hulk, who are all battling for points. And I think it was Lindblad who like moved to the side for the blue flags and Hulk went a couple ahead and that's how he got into ninth or P9 or whatever. And so he like lost his chance at getting a spot ahead. And so I was like, okay, if you're in the bottom 10, fine, move out of the way. But if you're battling for points, that should still be part of the fight.
I agree. I think that part is. I think once if they've lapped you to your point, Andre, if they've already lapped one and you're about to go 2 down, yeah, get out of the way. But I still stand by the. I mean, I'm not saying make it a challenge, but you know, you ain't gotta move out the left side of the lane.
Yeah.
It's not ludicrous.
Get out of the
Ludicrous can
way.
have
I
it.
don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. Like
I don't want to see you.
resume your battle once the lead cars have gone. Not my fault you're slow. It is what it is.
He said, "Hit pause on the joystick until I get up out of the way. And then you
Exactly.
can
Just get out of the way
resume
and
your game."
then resume your scrapping.
Then
because
resume
there's-
game.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll leave it there. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, a lot of news to get to, specifically a lot of schedule changes, or at least one schedule change officially, and a couple that might be coming. So stick around. All right, we're back. We are putting the Hungarian Grand Prix in the rear view. We're going to talk about some of the news that has come down in the last couple of days. We start with the biggest story in Formula One, which is the Bahrain Grand Prix is back, baby. It will not be raced in Bahrain because the United States is still at war with Iran for some reason, and the Middle East is still untenable. They have decided to move the Bahrain Grand Prix to Malaysia, the Sepang International Circuit, which is right next to Kuala Lumpur's airport, the weekend of October 4th. So now that weekend that has Azerbaijan, in between Azerbaijan and Singapore, you're going to have a third race. So it's now a triple header in that particular portion of late September, early October. And of course, there was talk about whether it would be called the Malaysian Grand Prix. because of hosting rights, because of naming rights that Bahrain maintained because of because of the race being postponed, it will be officially the Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia. That's how it's going to work. So I think the first off is it's stupid that we're still having to deal with this because of the United States being stupid in general, especially when it comes to our relations in the Middle East. But here we are. But I think if there is something to salvage from this, it's that Malaysia, who has not had a race since I believe 2017, gets one. And so I think I'm sure the fans down there are excited to not just get Singapore, which is the closest race to them normally, but now one that's right back in their backyard. Deepti, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's hilarious that Bahrain maintains the naming rights. But I am excited to get one more race on the grid or on the schedule, and then the fact that it's in like Southeast Asia as well is fun. I love Singapore's race, and I think that whole area has potential for really nice tracks. Um, I think I also saw somewhere that only half the grid is familiar with the Malaysia track, so it is pretty new for a lot of them, especially because last year we had so many rookies. So that would be interesting too, just to have like an entirely new grid for a new track for so many of them on there. I think it will. I mean, more races this year is better.
And I also think it's interesting, right? Because when they made the decision to postpone both Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, they said, "Oh, this is not coming back. We're going to proceed with 22 races, and these aren't coming back this year." I think you kind of have to talk about this because of the maintained of conflict in the Middle East, particularly U.S. versus Iran. There is still talk that, and they're going to make this decision apparently in September on whether to hold the Qatar and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which are the last two races of the season. If they take those out, they'd be down to 20 races, and they would lose a ton of money in the process. And I think with a race how quickly it is, and that there's still these back and forth between specifically Mercedes and Ferrari cars atop the constructors and the drivers championships, they didn't want to take out multiple races and make it where a team catching up runs out of time because there's no more races. So there is talk about postponing those, maybe moving those to Europe. We'll talk about that in a second. But I also think this came about because of the risk of having to cancel more down the line. They said, let's get one back, at least one back on the books, so that we can kind of use that to maybe offset whatever this we might have to make down the line, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere. They were talking about replacing it, but they were talking about Portimao was the last thing I heard. It was in Portugal. That was going to be the track that they were going to go to. So suddenly it's Malaysia, and I'm just guessing some money changed hands, and there was more of it in one hand than the other, and they said, okay, well, we're going to Malaysia. That's how I'm guessing these things
Logistics
happen.
probably help too, that they're already in Singapore or about to go to Singapore, so at least they can get cars there.
Correct. Well, this is the other funny thing is for all my map tap aficionados, anybody want to guess how far away Malaysia is from Bahrain?
It's about 6,000 miles, I want to say.
Oh, you overshot it. It's actually closer.
Oh, it's closer.
It is 3,717 miles, according to the Googles, away, if a straight line. So not exactly close. So that also
Seattle
is
to
very
Washington.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's extremely funny that this is the case, but this is the world in which we live in. Yes, you don't have to be in Bahrain to have the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's about a brand, and so they will just say that, which is just weird. But whatever, it's the world in which we live. The one thing that I'm interested in seeing is this track is fun. I'm a little concerned about the like battery recovery issue that we have at some of the longer tracks because this track it's like a combination of maybe like Mexico and China. And so it has like back-to-back long straights, and there's only one like hairpin turn in between them, and that's gonna be tough. That's going to be really tough for especially like the AI rant I went on earlier. That's going to be pretty tough. So yeah, but there is that almost like curly Q thing that's like turn one, and that turn one complex at China. So like there are some really interesting turns, and I think I love the fact, Deepti, that you brought up that there are a lot of drivers who aren't familiar with this track at all because it hasn't been on the calendar in such a long time. So I'm excited to see how they cope, like everything about it, really, how they cope with it, how these cars look on it, and just being in Malaysia, which I think they should continue instead of again, this is my opinion. Instead of packing so many European races, let's spread them out. I think Lewis has been banging the drum for a race in Africa for a long
Hmm.
time. Like
Mhm.
they got to spread these things out because the tracks are interesting. And it's good for those fans to grow. I know you want to be in the markets where everybody is already oversaturated, but that's not the point. Like it's one of those things where it's more important to bring the sport as many places as you can and hopefully keep it accessible, which is another conversation. But anyway, I'm excited for this. I think this track is going to be back on the calendar in some sort of regularity in the future. So it'll be a really cool, like, oh, this is like reminder of, oh, this is what this track is, and it looks like it's going to be really fun.
You mentioned Africa, and I want to shift quickly to the end of the season because again, it goes hand in hand with kind of why Malaysia has reappeared on the calendar. But I think if the all of the reports, and of course it's F1, like most international sports, it's European centric, and they're only going to think of what's in their backyard first. When they were talking about whether Qatar or Abu Dhabi would be postponed or moved, all of the tracks that they have listed as possibles are in Europe. It's Portimao, it's Istanbul, and I think Imola. Um, and let me tell you what December looks like for all three of those tracks: snowy and cold. I guarantee you, the drivers do not want to play or to race in on a track that they haven't been at. Right, Imola at least is one they're familiar with, but the others they're not. And to do that on conditions that are not going to be good for those cars. There is a reason why they go to the Middle East in December because it is going to be at least warm enough for those cars to operate the way that they want to. This is where Africa could come into play. Now, I know that there's not a lot of tracks in Africa right now that would be certified by the FIA to be suitable for a track, but this is where you give a test. If you want to put a track back onto the calendar, it'd probably be best to do one where it is summertime in December as opposed to one in the north that is going to potentially have snow or at the very least have cold temperatures that are not going to be suitable for driving. So I'm curious as to whether they decide to go through with it because as of right now, if you're gonna place a wager on whether whether they postpone those, I think the answer is yes because the situation hasn't changed and we don't expect it to change in a month. So I'm guessing that they're going to have to figure out what to do with this. But I think the answer does not lie in Europe. It might lie in South America. It might lie in Africa. It might again. This is again spitballing here, but potentially go back to Australia, where again more temperate climate or more temperate temperature. It's going to be close to summertime there, as opposed to close to winter everywhere else that you're considering. So it's just the FIA has to get out of its Eurocentric brain and think outside the box if they want to have these races and keep the money flowing in.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, do you want to just have the race or do you want to maybe have an entertaining product? I mean, this is kind of a question that we talk about a lot with our steward of capital in the NWSL, right? Like,
Hmm.
do you care about the product or do you just want the event? And the event can happen anywhere, but the product is what people are really going to pay attention to and connect with. And it's the same conversation here with the FIA and trying to figure out how, and F1 trying to figure out how they're going to reschedule these races. Like, I heard Imola was on the docket for like being the last race of the season. You know
Yep.
how cold it's going to be up there in December? That's ridiculous. Like they always have issues. These cars always have issues when they're colder. And like the coldest race they go to is like Montreal in the spring. And that was a little bit weird for these cars, but they handled it. If they want to do Europe, the best they can possibly do is Portimao because it's in the Algarve. It might be. There's a chance it could be like high 50s, maybe really low 60s there for that weekend. Who knows? It all depends. But the best thing to do would be to just move the calendar around. And y'all remember when the season used to end in Brazil? Give me
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mhm.
Give
Mm-hmm.
me that. I think Brazil is a perfect like move. I know you got to do some things, move it around, like fix the tickets or whatever. Like you'll have to make some apologies, but I think they need to do that. And there's plenty of time to let people know this is actually going to be the last race of the season instead. So like plan to be there then because that is a perfect place and it should be a lot warmer and a lot more suitable to it. It's already an approved track. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I think it's pretty simple. Just move it and it'll be fine.
It is in Italy. Their national sport is soccer. I know they're not good at it right now, but it's still their national sport. They barely play soccer in December. They take winter breaks because it's too cold to play their national sport. What makes the FIA think it will be a perfect track to have in December for racing? And again, a race that can decide championships. The last thing you want is for the weather and for the cold conditions to affect who ends up claiming one or both of those championships. You just can't do it. Deepti.
Forget emotional support wet tires. They're going to need ice skates or skis if they're going to go to Imola in December.
Get the snow tires, get the snow chains out.
Yeah. I was looking at what Domenicali said about Imola specifically, and so December 6th, I think, is the date that they're looking for, and Imola is currently the top choice for that date. And I'm just going to read his quote. Says, it's definitely something that no one knows where the temperature will go or what the weather will be like. I think that actually we'll see in this situation how the evolution of climate change is happening. Climate change, yes, is an issue, but it will not
What is this
change
problem?
in 2 months to make it warm enough for a race. Okay, let me continue. He says, there's no certainty on everything about that. The only possibility we have is to finish in Europe within the same framework of the time, hoping that there will be no snow as we can hope in other places. If it's happening, we will try to react on that. Pirelli will not be ready to have the winter snow tires for that, but maybe they'll need to work on them soon. But seriously, I think the weather would allow us to race in Europe even in December.
We
He is
found
high off his ass.
I
we
don't know what
found
planet he's living on.
we found climate change's number one fan.
Right?
Domenicali said, "Yeah, burn those
He's like,
fossil
burn
fuels,
those
baby.
fossil fuels as much as you can in these next 2 months.
Get that
He said,
atmosphere hot. Let's get it hot in here."
you know what? That means he's got to bring it to the United States because you know what? At least we have air conditioning over here, and we can tell the residents of Florida or something like that. Hey, yo, run those a little bit extra this month. We need a little bit more in more greenhouse effect over here.
He's going to
for
be
this
lobbying
race.
for like 1 million data centers to be built around
know,
that
right?
region.
I cannot. I'm so glad you read those quotes because oh my dude, could you be more out of touch? Like this is not. It's not cool. Just because it might possibly like you said, Dave, it ain't gonna benefit you in like a few months, maybe in like 5 years,
Yeah.
but like not a few months, maybe even 3 years the way things are going, but not in months. And you cheering it on, rah rah climate change, my guy, please. Stop.
Look, we're on the subject of Domenicali. That wasn't the only stupid thing he said this week. So, Andre, I know you wanted to talk about this. Go for it, because
Oh,
my man was on a heater.
he really was on a heater. And this is honestly, I blame him and I blame George Lucas. Why he was talking to George Lucas, I don't know. Why George Lucas was telling him what F1 fans care about and want, I don't know that either. But apparently they had a conversation and Domenicali was very sold on what George Lucas had to say. And it was about, there's been the argument that despite the batteries being so important in this regulation set, we get I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times they've given us a graphic to show battery charge limits on the screen. They just don't do that. And he was responding to it with that. And he said, the truth is, this is a quote from him, exactly the other way around about whether fans will be interested in this. He says, because no one is interested in how you drive your car. People are interested in if you're overtaking or not. That's the vast majority of the people. I agree with you that certain people are focused on this thing that is very important. It's like when you were opening the DRS, people were not interested in what was the cause of the pass. I had an incredible, interesting discussion with George Lucas on Saturday. He was in Hungary and gave me an incredible view on how the new fans are watching Formula One. George Lucas? Did he run a survey? Like, why are you listening to him? Anyway, he says, and he gave us an incredible perspective to see how we can really simplify things because the new fans are not understanding the truth of what is behind the scenes. They're fascinated by the fact that there is a lot of action. He wants to dumb down his own sport
This
because
is
George
Lindsay
Lucas
Heaps
said
calling her
so.
mama dumb in the New York Times. He's calling
Also,
her dumb.
also, why, like, if he feels that we as fans don't care about that sort of thing, why is there a data channel on Formula One TV? Why
I
is
mean,
it
there won't
every
be
race?
soon, I guess.
Yeah, well, every race they have a section, multiple sections during qualifying, during practice, during the race, where they break down some of these things. And I think in the case of Sky Sports, do a pretty good job, and I think Formula One TV does this too. Does a pretty good job at not necessarily dumbing it down, but explaining it in layman terms so that people who aren't Deepti, who have degrees in this, like have an explanation and have an understanding of what it is they're talking about, so we can say this is why their car is 0.3 seconds slower than Kimmy's. Those little things are very, very interesting for us. And he's thinking all we do is literally our tagline. We just want the car to go vroom, vroom, and we watch them go vroom, vroom all day. There is a nuance to this sport. That's why we all love it. And we all are introduced to it in different ways through those nuances.
That's
That
the
is where he
thing.
is missing the boat.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is like this is supposed to be the pinnacle of motor racing. There are millions and billions of dollars in this sport, and what does that get you? I'm interested in knowing, like I want to see all these details and hear all this technical stuff and what's going on behind the scenes because I'm fascinated by it. It makes the sport stand out instead of just saying we have the best drivers, we have the best cars, watch them go vroom vroom around the track. Well, if there's no other information, then I don't know what makes it different from IndyCar. I don't know what makes it different from NASCAR. I don't know what makes it different from World Endurance Championship, except for just the look of the cars, like open wheel versus not. Like there, it's like dumbing down your sport to the point where you remove everything that's interesting about it and everything that sets it apart from everything else. And it doesn't make any sense to do that. Like, yes, I like action on the track, but you don't give me false action. And that's the problem, I think, with the battery as well, is that we don't know, okay, who's just out of charge. And that he thinks that we're going to be dumb enough to just like cheer the overtake because we don't have the battery information to know. But guess what? I can hop on the onboards and take a look and see, oh, and take a listen and be like, oh, yep, that's where the clipping went. That's where he ran out of battery, and then that's how the overtake happened. But give me something true. Give me something real and lean into what your sport actually is. And the sport isn't just about cars go round, go vroom. It's about the fascination with going faster, aerodynamics, pushing the limits with engines, like in downforce. Like all that stuff is fascinating to me and how they put these machines together. F1 cars are so unique, the most like unique racing machines, I think, in sports. Is why I love it. And I love the drivers that can handle these things and be better than their competitor by like 5/10 of a second around a track that's 3 miles long. That's bonkers. It's awesome. That's the cool thing about the sport. And to just strip all that away because George Lucas said so is wild.
I
George
want
Lucas of Star Wars fame, who taught us to think in scientific stardom,
Yes.
right? Like he is of a franchise that we will never actually see in real life, right? Like, and he's telling us, nah, actually, they don't want that. They just want us to just drive the cars straight and on turns. That's it. Deep deep.
Yeah, I want to see what data George Lucas got, what survey he ran, where he's thinking about this. Like, is this what he thinks? Like you said, this guy who created this whole sci-fi universe is just saying he also doesn't care about this. Like, I don't believe it. But also, I mean, I am biased. We are all biased because we are all very nerdy about the sport. But I think it's such a shame for a lot of the viewers who do like the like science behind it, want to see all the data. I mean, I follow so many people on Instagram too, who like Ruth Buscom has like a whole newsletter where she like goes through all the data afterwards and tells about strategy and all this stuff. And like you said, Donald, the Sky Sports especially, they have so many segments that are all about like the aerodynamics and then the data and whatever and looking at each lap. And I think all that information is really cool and is what makes F1 F1. And I also think in Domenicali saying this, it takes away from all the engineers who are behind the cars too. Like F1 is still a team sport. Yes, you have the driver who have to drive the car, but everyone behind the driver is of a scientific background and is the ones like using all this data to let the driver do what they're doing. And so just saying that no one's interested, I think also takes away from everything they're doing.
I think that is like a great point because that to me is the thing. Like if you're just stripping it completely away and it's just one car past another, yay, that's the only action you need without any context or anything else, then why like then the sport really becomes a gigantic waste of money. Like why are we paying so much money for every team, these high profile teams, to invest millions of dollars in developing an engine, pay all these engineers and aerodynamicists millions of dollars to try to come up with some sort of innovation that's going to give them a half a tenth or even less than that because all these little things add up to lap time. Like why are we going through all of that when you want to bury it all? Like that doesn't make any sense at all. Like you need to, those are the things you need to lean into so that people understand how complex and how fun and how interesting this sport is. Because not only do you have like the science nerdy brains of it all, you also have the bravery and the precision of the drivers. Like it all comes together to be fascinating and to be so interesting at really incredible speeds and downforce and cornering speeds as well, not just top speeds, but cornering speeds. All this stuff is so interesting because so much money is pumped into it. If you want to bury all that, okay, fine. Who cares? Just have the shell of a car, put a stock engine in them, and here we go. Everybody can save a bunch of money if that's what you want F1 to be. But I don't think it's going to be as interesting as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you know how this is how I know how important it is to the sport. They spent 25 minutes on it in the F1 movie, a movie that was created to introduce fans who know nothing about racing other than maybe the Fast and the Furious to the sport. Fast and the Furious even spends time on like, hey, go to hook up the computer and tell you what the dynamics are looking like, and here's what where we could get zero point 0.3 seconds off the line. Like those are things that are an innate part of all types of racing. So if you don't want that in your sport, people are going to find it because we are all smarter than Domenicali thinks we are. We all appreciate it. Yeah, sure. Some are going to appreciate more of it than others, but there's a reason why they spend, as you mentioned, Andre, 500, 600, 700 million dollars on a vehicle. We need to know where that money's going. And if it's going into this upgrade that they're bringing to this, or this little undercut thing, a new floor to increase aerodynamics, those are little things that even casual racing fans understand. They may not understand all of the science behind it, but they know, hey, if they change the tires, the car goes faster, or the car will make these turns better, right? Those are that's an innate thing that we all think about. I just took my car out of the shop, and I'm telling them things that they need to do to my car so that it will get fixed, so that I can go a little bit faster, can do these turns. I had to spend a lot of money to do it, but at least even within the base value of owning a vehicle, people understand the science, at least some of it, behind how a car goes from nothing to driving you down the street or driving Lewis Hamilton to victory lane. That's how this works. So, Domenicali, stop it. Take the winter break or take the summer break. Chill. Don't speak, because apparently when you speak, we have to talk about it.
And also,
last word.
delete George Lucas's phone number. I don't want y'all talking anymore.
I mean, I'm not even mad at George Lucas. George Lucas probably asked questions. I'm mad at Domenicali. Should know better. He should know, hey, George, thanks for your time. Appreciate you. Appreciate the kind words. I'll take that into consideration. And you turn around and go, nah, we're not doing any of that. Instead, he decided to make that something that is reality, which is kind of falls in line with what this variant timeline that we're living in right now. Deepti, you get the last word before we get out of here.
I think it's just because Domenicali doesn't have this background and he only cares about the business side and the money and he just wants to see the cars go vroom and that's why he's trying to get people behind him. But we will not let that stand. I will forever back the nerds and the science, and we should probably do some more factory reset episodes to get more of that science out there. I've been wanting to do a tire episode, as exciting as that sounds, and we will make it exciting because there's so much behind it.
The tires are a constant source of inquiry, and also again affects a lot of what the cars do. So maybe we should do that now that we have a summer break. Maybe we can take a couple weeks off and then come back with one of those before we get back into it. But that will do it for this episode of at DRSFC. Remember, check out our store, our stimulus store, both for jerseys and for other apparel that you can have around your house, from backpacks and shirts to dog collars and coffee mugs. We have it all. So you can outfit everyone in your household with DRS FC gear. Also, keep a look if you are in DC in November. Got some things brewing for that, but we'll leave that for another day. He's Andre. She's Deepti. I'm Donald. For everyone at DRS FC, vroom vroom.
Vroom, vroom.